Unbelievable once again, another record, huh? 10 in a row.
10 races in a row, you're on your own, mate, now. That's history.
Things can easily change in Formula One, and Max Verstappen is down in 15th position.
So what really happened to Red Bull at the Singapore Grand Prix? It's obvious, isn't it?
Do you have confidence you have a car you can get up to the podium and even win it with?
No, for sure not.
Max said, we'll let them have one, and then we're going to be back. Never has a car so dominant of a season, this RB19, been so humbled.
Are you worried?
We'll get on top of these issues, and we will try and get on top of them for tomorrow.
The FIA, well, they've been desperate to level the playing field all this time. QTD018. That's the technical directive issued by the FIA just before the Singapore Grand Prix to stop teams abusing flexi floors and flexi wings.
Now, flexible wings is something that does keep coming up in the sport of Formula One. Flexible wings, movable aerodynamic devices, remember, are banned. The problem is, while flexible wings are banned, flexible wings are inevitable. So teams are now going to have to be submitting some of the details of how they construct each individual laminate section of those wings to the FIA in advance of each Grand Prix.
And so the timing, it's perfect. The one race where Red Bull struggled is the race where the FIA have implemented the directive. This can't be coincidence. And this wouldn't be the first time that a technical directive has come in and eroded a team's competitive advantage. Just think TD039. Since its implementation, Ferrari's pace has become the stuff of myth and legend. Because TD39, you remember, forced Ferrari to raise their ride height, and as it turns out, their ability to compete with the balls that were red was a function of their ability to run low. And since then, Ferrari hadn't even come close to beating Red Bull. That is, until Singapore.
Carlos Sainz, tactical brilliance. Carlos Sainz, the winner of the Singapore Grand Prix. Ferrari's first victory since Austria last year. Red Bull's perfect season ends at Grand Prix 15.
Well, this is an open and shut case then, Johnson. Technical directive guilty as charged. Well, not so fast. Because the technical directive at Singapore was applied uniformly across all sessions. But Red Bull's performance wasn't bad uniformly. Let me show you what I mean. In FP1, Max was third, only 1/10 shy of Charles Leclerc. In FP3, it was a similar story, only 3/10 off the lead. It's only FP2 and quali then that Red Bull was seriously off the pace.
The team that have won every single Grand Prix this year see both cars fall. What just happened?
And lest we forget that the race pace wasn't too shabby either. It's a strange one, this. Because if it were the technical directives who'd done it, you'd expect the RB19 to be bad across all sessions, not just the second session of each day, surely. But what do FP1 and quali both have in common? Second sessions of the day. And this means more grip, much more grip. Because the rate of track evolution at Singapore is much higher than that of nearly any other on the calendar. And this means not only is the afternoon session quicker than the morning, but the end of each session much quicker than the beginning. And while some have said the only outlier at the track at the Singapore Grand Prix was the technical directives, you know, I'm not sure that's quite right. Because since Singapore isn't fast or flowy like a Spa or a Silverstone, it was never going to be a Red Bull track. They knew that much. But Singapore poses its own unique set of problems distinct from a Monaco or Hungary, particularly for the likes of Red Bull who have cracked the ground effect code by running their car super low. Singapore is a 1-2 punch of a circuit, long straights with lots of 90-degree turns. Yeah, in that sense, like Monaco say, but bumpy, full of compressions, Eau Rouge-esque. Like Spa. Or at least it was last year, because since then, the owners have resurfaced the track. Partially. And this is key because when running their simulations, Red Bull will have used last year's bumpier, less grippy track to work up their calcs. And with the setup mistakes of Spa and Brazil still fresh in the memory, this will have influenced their decision to run the car higher. Too high for a now smoother Singapore track. They bring a softer suspension too, one that was too soft for the newly resurfaced, grippier track. And this made the usually dependable underfloor aero of the Red Bull unpredictable. Inconsistent. The car was bottoming out, unstable on turning. The RB19's handling dynamic was at its worst in FP2 and quali, when the track was at its grippiest. Even in the hands of Verstappen, thing was undrivable. Adrian Newey's all-conquering RB19 was for this one race a dog? Because Red Bull had done what we thought them incapable of doing in 2023. Made a mistake. The assumptions for their simulation critically a year out of date. And for a car whose god-tier performance is a function of a sensitive setup process, that mattered. The most likely suspect then is that Red Bull just dropped the ball with their setup. Similar to Spa earlier this year, where the car would push the ride height too low and risk wearing away the skid block and so disqualification. Just that at Spa, Eau Rouge accepted the track is relatively flat, the team able to drive around the issue, backing off for Eau Rouge when compression is at its most aggressive. Singapore though is bumpier more frequently and so less forgiving in that sense. And you know, this wouldn't be the first time that a dodgy setup has made a back marker out of a dominant car. Think Mercedes in Singapore 15.
Accelerating to full throttle, but it's just not going.
Oh, and he's been overtaken by his teammate Rosberg into the first turn.
Think Red Bull in Brazil 22.
On board with Lewis Hamilton and Perez trying to defend. Oh, look, he's pushing to the maximum. He's almost pushing into the rear wing of the Red Bull. Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc is looking to go down the inside. Perez wanted to cover that off, but it was too late. But look at the speed that the Alpine's got.
But realising their setup mistakes, Red Bull would try to cure for them in FP3 on the Saturday. They'd run the car stiffer to try and solve for the bottoming out. But what the change gained them in predictability, they'd lost in grip. But critically, they had improved. But unsatisfied with anything less than excellence, Red Bull continued to tinker. But as happens with these things sometimes, the changes has made the car worse. And so here's where we are. I think we can throw away the theory that so steep is Red Bull's fall from grace that the cause had to be the technical directive. You know, I'd argue the contrary, because you'd not expect a technical directive whose focus is flexi wings to make a back marker out of one of the most dominant cars that we've seen in all of F1 history. Here's where the smart money's at. The combination of long straights into heavy braking zones was never going to suit the characteristics of the RB19. The resurfacing, the evolution of the track through session and the bumpiness all conspired to make it a difficult weekend for the Bulls that are red. But principal among the causes of Red Bull's underperformance this weekend past was its inability to optimise for this very strange set of circumstances. But if Red Bull rock up at Suzuka next weekend and Verstappen doesn't make Q3 again, well then maybe it's me who's got his calculations wrong.